insane stories that we read about, like the guy who slaughtered this innocent woman on a light rail train in Charlotte. Is that demonic possession or harassment? What about the Minneapolis shooter? Was he possessed?
Perhaps possession. It's really hard to tell, but he was definitely under diabolic influence. You can't help but be aware that there is something diabolic taking place in the world. There has been a shift, if you will. All of human history is one of dour combat with the forces of evil.
It says, I purchased a house and found out that a murder-suicide took place there years ago. I mean, that's kind of awkward, right? Like, you'd think that would be disclosed during the sales process.
The Freemasonic organization is something that's been condemned. Since it's been out, almost every pope has spoken out against it. It's something that it's incompatible membership, and that brings a latae sententiae excommunication for Catholics. So you cannot be a Freemason and be Roman Catholic. The 33rd degree, the great architect of the universe, is disclosed as being Lucifer.
By the way, my name is Joe McClane. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Like, you keep seeing all of these stories in the news. I mean, terrible stories, like the one we reported yesterday about this slaughter on a light rail train in Charlotte, North Carolina. An innocent woman, unsuspecting, slaughtered, murdered. And nobody seemed to care or interested to do anything about it. They just let the guy walk away, apparently. The Minneapolis shooter, the transvestite who murdered innocent people at a mass. I mean, it just seems diabolic to me. There's another story about a man who murdered a professor from Auburn in a park in Alabama, drove off with her truck. It begs the question, are the devils loose in the world? Are they allowed to run ramshot over anything and everybody they want? Can they do whatever? Are these men possessed? There's a brand new book out by Dr. Dan Schneider and Jesse Romero called Spiritual Warfare Q&A for Priests and Laity by 10books.com. And he joins us, Dr. Dan Schneider does, this morning to talk about it. Good morning to you, Dr. Schneider. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, my good friend. Thanks for having me back on. It's good to see you again.
Praise be to God. So let's start with that one. Are the devils under every rock?
Yeah, I think that's really the danger. What really, if you look what the demon's goal is to either convince us that he doesn't exist, that he might be out there, but he doesn't really care about you or me. Or the other extreme is look for the demon everywhere. So you have to just be careful of that. The old adage is if you go looking for the devil, he will find you. So you have to be careful of an unholy curiosity about diabolic things. But at the same time, you can't help but be aware that there is something diabolic taking place in the world. There has been a shift, if you will, and even secular podcasters and secular influencers, Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, and some of these others. Tucker Carlson was talking about getting attacked by a demon at night. Even the secular influencer media folks are acknowledging something crazy, something evil's going on. So we can't look for the demon behind every rock, but we also have to be aware that some of these things are just a sign of a greater cosmic spiritual battle that's taking place that we're all find ourselves in. As the Catechism says, Catechism 409, all of human history is one of dour combat with the forces of evil, beginning in the garden to the present day. So we're all cast into this. If you remember, Joe, they remember the old ritual. Sometimes some bishops still do it, but in the old rite of confirmation, the bishop would give a little slap. They call it the colee, C-O-L-E-E. It was something back to the days of chivalry. And the idea was you are now being knighted. You are now entering into the church militant. When I was in the military, when I was in combat in Iraq, once you put that uniform on, you can't leave. A combatant, a military person, a soldier it has to stay and fight. You can't turn and run. That's called going AWOL. And so civilians, they can leave the combat zone if they'd like, but military folks, you're here for a job. And so that's the reminder of from the ritual of the rite of confirmation that we are in a church militant. This is a cosmic battle that we're in, and we need to all. It's a call to arms for us, spiritual arms, of course, to start doing battle, of prayer and making penance and sacrifices. We could bring more grace into the world.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I loved watching you on Sean Ryan's podcast. You did a great job. Praise be to God. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. He's a good guy.
Witnessing to such a large audience that way. I really appreciate the fact that Sean Ryan has had some guests in our category, Catholic category, to expose his audience that way. I thought that was great. So I was really happy to see you on that show. But specifically about like say the Minneapolis shooter. Let's just take that one for example. Clearly, he had animosity and hatred towards our Savior Jesus Christ, his Catholic Church. When looking at that one image in his diary of him looking in a mirror and seeing a devil, I have to believe this guy was at least the minimum diabolically harassed, but maybe he was possessed. I mean, as a guy with so much experience in your background, you and Jesse writing this book, do you think of it that way as well? Do you think this guy might have been possessed?
Right. I think one of the principles is, if you go back to the first movements of how this works, there's a lot of uncontested possessions out there. People that you read about that are at a minimum instruments of the devil, but some to the point of possession without any contestation on their part. So when you look at the shooter, the principle that we apply, that we look at, is the first principle is the psychological obsession can generate a diabolic oppression, or even greater, even psychological oppression, because you have three stages of extraordinary activity of the devil. You have the ordinary activity of the devil is temptation. The extraordinary is oppression, of spiritual obsession, and then possession. And so a psychological obsession, just on a very wounded human side of psychologically obsessed. In this case, it's a case of deep gender dysphoria that can create an open pathway for the demon to come in and create a spiritual oppression. In his case, very quickly to obsession, and then perhaps possession. It's really hard to tell, but he was definitely under diabolic influence just by the drawings and other things that you mentioned. The fact that he not only killed children in church, he shot up the statue of the Holy Family, shot at the face of Jesus. Not everything that has a religious context means it's diabolic obsession, but in this particular possession, this particular case, it's hard not to look at his writings and some of the things that he's saying, to think that this guy is under some heavy influence, whether it's obsession or possession. It's hard to tell.
Wow, it definitely seems dark and diabolic to me. All of these cases that we're seeing in the Charlotte train thing, just random acts of horrific, gruesome violence, and nobody did anything. They just all sat there while this woman was slaughtered. It's really, really dark. I want to jump into one of the questions in your book, though, Spiritual Warfare Q&A, Priests and Laity by tanbooks.com. A great book, by the way. I can see this being a wonderful resource that sits on your shelf because your brother's going to ask tough questions, your sister, your neighbor, your coworker. They're going to ask questions about what you Catholics think about this, that, or the other thing, and you're going to pull this off and be able to go to that question and get some solid answers to be able to answer them with. It's a great resource. But on page 29, question number 11, I like this one. Admittedly, I have to say it's my curiosity, which is, curiosity killed the cat. That's what exorcists say. Sometimes exorcists on the internet report on what the demon says in session, but doesn't the demon lie? This is one of those conundrums. I've often thought about this. Like, I have heard exorcists talk about this. Like, the demon said this, that, and the other thing during exorcism. But aren't they the father of lies? Can we ever trust anything a demon says in an exorcism?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's why it's one of the things that comes up is, exorcists shouldn't say anything about this because the demon lies. Of course he lies, but what I do here, I kind of lay out again after spending 10 years grinding out with cases, intakes, and being present at exorcisms and being present at minor exorcisms. You begin to see a pattern, and that if you think of it this way too, Joe. When we were in the Gulf War, we captured hundreds, if not thousands, of Iraqi POWs. And the interrogations, at the beginning, they resist, right? The enemy's going to resist. But then under duress, the enemy will give you all the information that you want. And then over time, he'll give you more information to stop the duress, if you will. So he'll begin to lie again. So there's kind of a bell curve of veracity. Now, understanding that, they're dealing with the demon is a liar and the father of lies. So you have to be aware of that. But under duress, especially when an exorcist, when he has a mandate, the demon is bound. He is bound to answer the demon's questions. The priest's questions, and so specifically the questions that are in the rite of exorcism. And so what we see is you don't build your theology, you don't build your case around what a demon may say in session. But what it does is, for me, it ratifies truths that we know in the Catholic faith. It helps us to more deeply understand them. The demon doesn't want to see, again, I was an attack helicopter and a cavalry pilot. And so, the demon doesn't want doesn't want a priest to know and give any information out any more than an Iraqi tank wanted to be seen by an attack helicopter pilot. So if a demon manifests, it's for some salvific purpose. So it does take some discernment. If it's inconsistent with the deposit of faith, it's dubious. But when the demon says certain things, it just affirms what we know to be true. Certain truths about the Virgin Mary, certain truths about the teachings of the church. One session the demon cries out, the priest was invoking the intercession of the Blessed Mother. The demon cries out, "Oh, her! Every time you call her, she comes. She puts her mantle around you. Right? She is the spouse of God." We know. This is consistent with church's teachings. But at the same, or there's lust in this room. Nobody in this room is fasting. The demon is giving us intelligence by under duress by God. God's forcing him out. The demon's giving intelligence for the team, and also particularly the energumen, to figure out this is the way through. If the demon cries out, there's lust in this room, there's lust, there's no one's fasting. He might be trying to call the team members out and shame the team members or the priest, but he's really giving, this is what it's going to take. This is what it's going to take for me to leave. And this is the entry point. The entry point here is something of sexual nature, so that they need to work on sexual purity. And also this type only comes out through prayer and fasting. So it affirms that. Now, for me as well, I don't like to tell the stories if they're not catechetical, if they're not pointing something to the truths of faith. But really, the most beautiful thing that comes out in session is the holiness. Generally speaking, the possessed person, by the end, after years, sometimes years, but months and months, week in, week out of praying, being prayed over, is oftentimes the holiest person in the room. They really are Christ-like in their suffering, offering their suffering up. They become very holy throughout the process. So it isn't just the manifest, what the demon says. It's the saints who show up, the power of the Virgin Mary, the power of the priesthood. This is what really is the most profound thing that I've seen over the years.
We're having a conversation with Dr. Dan Schneider, co-author of Spiritual Warfare, Q&A for Priests and Laity, co-authored with Jesse Romero. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Schneider. There were several questions in the book that I absolutely wanted to dive into, but time's not going to let us do that. So let me get to one of the more I thought was very, very interesting questions, and that was on page 75. It says, I purchased a house and found out that a murder-suicide took place there years ago. I mean, that's kind of awkward, right? Like, you'd think that would be disclosed during the sales process. By the way, the house did involve a murder-suicide. Apparently, they don't disclose that information. So who knows what happened in your house by the previous owners? I think that can give us all, like, the hairs are going to stand up in the back of our head right now. It says, sometimes I think the house is haunted. Can that happen? I found that very, very interesting. You make some distinctions here between demons and souls. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so it's, again, the patterns you see, the difference between a purgative soul or a ghost, the ghost hunting and all that stuff. By the way, we've had ghost hunters, so-called people that called the diocese and said, hey, my house is infested or my house is haunted, and I called in ghost hunters, and the demon trashed their equipment and scratched them up, and they ran out of the house screaming. So can you help us? So there's a bit of a curiosity phenomenon right now that's popular among people about this ghost hunting thing. But there is a distinction between a diabolic infestation and a purgative soul seeking prayer, which is rare. It's on very rare occasion does God allow a purgative soul to ask for prayer. And the difference is, is it one is the purgative soul is non-destructive versus destructive. And I put a chart on here. One is tied to location. It causes a natural fear, but not an increase in sinful behavior. Other ones, when it's a demon, it's a negative energy. Usually there's strife, calumny, detraction. The purgative soul ultimately is there for prayer, and the more you pray, the more the diabolic activity. The more the preternatural activity decreases. So a soul is there, is bound to the place. Some grave sin was committed there, and God is allowing the soul to go back from purgatory to ask for prayers versus a demon that is there. And it's going to increase activity with prayer. The more you pray, the worse it gets, the more destructive it gets. And so there's some ways you can distinguish between the two. And the thing is you should always bless your house. Have your house.
If we were to, there's another question that's popped in my head now. First of all, if we were to encounter a soul that, according to your chart, and again, you should get the book because it's page 75 and there's a chart there. According to this chart, if we were to determine, okay, the soul is not destroying things, it's not, following me around, things like that. It's a purgative soul. God is allowing this. So should that indicate to us that we should then start to pray for this person specifically in purgatory?
Right. Having masses said, if for example, that who was there was a family member or whatever may have died there, that, having masses said for for the souls in purgatory and for this soul, or if you get permission, having mass said at the location, oftentimes will clean it up. The soul's asking for prayer, and having holy mass offered in the place in reparation for their sins, oftentimes cleans it up as well. So having masses of reparation is very important. Praying for the dead, praying for the souls in purgatory, and if it's diabolic, that those sorts of activities is going to increase the combat that takes place there.
What an amazing thing. I was going to say, how amazing would it be to encounter a soul from purgatory sent back by God's grace, specifically to request prayers? Like, that would blow my mind just to be thinking about that. Yeah. But I do want
the little office of the dead. There's a lot of things that you can do, but praying, again, we're connected in a mystical body. Praying for the church suffering is very important. Yeah.
I want to skip to page 87 to talk about Freemasonry, because we're going to run out of time faster than we think here. It says, my father and grandfather were Freemasons. What prayers do I need to pray to break any curses? What do I do with his ring and apron? I was a third-degree Master Mason before I became Catholic. I've repented of this, of course. I've thrown all of my stuff away. But my father's still an active Mason, 32nd degree. And of course, my grandfather was a Mason. It runs in the family, and I've had to pray those prayers. But I can just see it right now. I can hear the voices right now, Dr. Schneider. Come on. They wear little hats. They drive little cars. They run hospitals. They're good Christian men. It's just a fraternity. What is your problem? None of these guys are nefarious. Why would this be a problem?
Yeah, there's what you see up front, and there's things that you saw, and then there's something that goes deeper behind the scenes that you haven't seen, and perhaps your father hasn't seen as well. And this is something that, again, the motto is against cross and crown. So the Freemasonic organization is something that's been condemned by several. Almost since it's been out, almost every pope has spoken out against it. It's something that it's incompatible membership, and that brings a late sententiae excommunication for Catholics. So you cannot be a Freemason and be Roman Catholic. But at its root, again, it militates against the church. It's pantheistic, it's syncretistic in its invocation of the various understanding of God, the great architect of the universe. At some level, the 33rd degree, the great architect of the universe, is disclosed to the individual as being Lucifer. So it's Luciferian, secular humanist in its understanding, and again, it's pagan in its rituals. And so when these rituals when you do these certain rituals, you're in particular, because it's a male organization, then curses now can move down into the family. And so doing those renunciation prayers are very important.
Yeah, amen. I picked up Father Ripperger's book on prayer and prayed those prayers as well. And I would recommend everybody to do that in addition. There's so many great questions.
At the low level, Joe. I mean, what you saw at the low level, they're just a fraternal type organization. They're raising money for the Schneider hospitals, etc.
Specifically, I would say, specifically, I would say, even at the first 3 levels, the Master Mason level, first 3 degrees, there's enough meat on that bone to cause great concern to anybody who's paying attention. You are swearing blood oaths to have yourself killed or to participate in the murder of someone else if they reveal the secrets. That's kind of a big deal. You are stripped.
It's a big deal.
You are stripped of your clothes, of all your wedding ring, your crucifix. All of it has to come off, and you enter naked and blind. Yeah, because you are in the darkness and the lodge is the light. This should raise a little red flag to most people that are discerning. Of course, I wasn't discerning. I just went through this ritual, whatever. But there's enough meat on the bone, even at the lower levels, to cause great concern. Swearing oaths, that are morally, depraved should be an issue. But anyway, I do want to move on because we're going to run out real quick here. I loved what you said about yoga. I love what you said about Harry Potter and others. These are big items that are like, they get past the filters of most Catholics. They sort of think these things are innocent, but they're not.
Yeah, no, I just saw a post yesterday from a Dominican priest that says, more people get afflicted by demons by reading Father Amorth's books than reading Harry Potter, kind of defending Harry Potter. I find it kind of interesting that Harry Potter is a huge issue, and so is yoga. That always triggers people, Catholics in particular. I found it interesting that you've got people saying that a priest saying it's dangerous to read Harry Potter. It's dangerous to read Father Gabriel Amorth's books, and it's okay to read Harry Potter. Essentially, is what he's saying. And Father Amorth himself said that there's no Christianizing Harry Potter. There's no separating out. It's satanic at its roots. This is what Father Amorth says about it, and as well as yoga. Yoga is a portal, he says, because again, those to the diabolic doesn't mean if you do yoga you're going to get possessed, but it creates a vulnerability for you. And so these things are pagan in root, and we have to just be aware of that.
30 seconds. What about Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings is good. It's Christian allegory. There's a huge difference, just because the genre might be children's sci-fi, but there's a big difference between Tolkien's work and Harry Potter. Huge difference.
Love it.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.